Dave here. You've got all the best architectural patterns, you've got all the best design practices, you've got all the best testing, but unfortunately, one day your product is going to be legacy and everybody hates it. There is another unfortunate truth, and that is that your code is not special. And that applies to me too, unfortunately, but the majority of code out there is written using the same frameworks, the same packages, the same patterns, and it's more or less just copy paste with some changes what everybody else does. And it's important to rip that band-aid off quickly so you can clearly think about what is good for a product and what is good for a business. Something that I always try to think about is that the dev who comes after me is a psychotic axe murderer who knows where I live. So I want to make my product as good as possible for the person who comes after me. And that leads into the topic for today, and that is that brownfields costs way more than greenfields. We have here on the right a really naive breakdown of staffing costs over the life of a product, where just for the sake of argument, we've got a $40,000 difference between junior, mid and senior. And during greenfields, we've got 10 people on the project for 2 years and it costs $2 million. And then as we have a look at the costs as it goes over time for a 20-year-old product, because your product should last 20 years, and if it doesn't, you should be embarrassed. You can see that the costs are 3 times as much. And that's because no matter how much you drop off that curve of the staffing, it goes for so long after it's made, the prices rise up. And you might rightly say, well, hang on, what about the enterprise architect? What about the product owner? What about the testers? And okay, we'll put those in too. However, that just makes it even worse, because here we have, you've got an EA, you've got a BA, you've got a PO, you've got a tester, and it puts the price of greenfields up to $3,600. However, some of those people live on afterwards through the product, and even with them rolled off hard, that puts it from 3 in the previous situation up to 4. And unfortunately, no matter how you balance this, no matter what you make those costs of the people, no matter what you make the layout of the team, brownfields always costs at least 3 times more than greenfields to make. And it's even worse again because there's a velocity cost. Because if you're not thinking about your product from the legacy sense, it's going to take even longer to debug and change it as it ages inside the business and it's still serving an important business purpose. So if you care about your product and you care about the outcomes of the business, the best thing you can do is think about not what is best in greenfields, but what's best when it becomes a legacy product. So think about for yourself, have you worked on legacy products for any extended period of time? I've done heaps of legacy programming. I actually quite like it, but if you haven't done legacy programming, how do you know what works best for an app when it's in legacy status? And then you should think along with it, if you care about the business, how can I design this app so it lasts for the longest possible time? And how can I make this the best developer experience possible for the people who come after me when they're working on this legacy product? And professionally, the most pride I have ever felt is when I hear back about a product I wrote a long time ago, I may have even forgotten about it, and I hear that it still ran or is still running for quite a long time. So the 2 proudest moments I can imagine in my career, one of them was a mobilization product I wrote. It was quite a long time ago. It was AngularJS at the time when that was new and cool. And I heard that after I was made redundant, they never hired anyone else to work on the product, and it just kept running until AngularJS, the version I was using, became so old and it became a security risk and they turned it off. Don't know actually what they did about that afterwards, but that's what happened. And the second one was something really small and simple. When you log into an enterprise, you get a message of the day or a thing that's coming up. And I wrote a little thing for them that they could just drop some files into a secure location to configure it. And as far as I know, that one is still running 10 years on. And I think it was about 7 years after I wrote it that I heard that they were still using it, which was really, really cool. So I implore you all, think about how you can write a product so that in 20 years' time you heard that when they replaced it, it was still going and it wasn't that horrible that people could still use it and not swear when they said your name. Happy programming. Have yourself a good day.